So I'm just getting back out to a repair that I had written up. I had a video a little while back about me diagnosing a bad inducer motor and pressure switch on this unit. I had stated a little bit about the board having some burn marks on it. It was more precautionary on the actual ignition board. The little resistors on there basically just kind of we're starting to make a discoloring on the board. Usually I've seen that on quite a few where it's totally fine, but sometimes I'll just throw it out there, more of a preventative thing, repair to do. These people here decided not to do the ignition board, which I was fine with, but the pressure switch and the inducer motor assembly we are doing. I did keep this unit off just so it didn't keep trying to run. So I basically making sure I have it off now, and I'm going to start replacing this. It's pretty simple, straightforward. I'm going to have a few screws here and a few screws going around. I just got to undo those and get the new one on. One thing I highly recommend for anyone doing an inducer motor, whether it's commercial, residential, or whatever, is try to get the gasket for it. Trying to reuse these gaskets, a lot of them get kind of mangled or messed up, and then you get just poor seals. So also I've also seen they get really flaky, and then a lot of that debris gets in the inducer motor. And I've actually seen on like those little cups in the wheel in there, I've seen it where they just completely like fill up with that junk. I've gone back on calls in the past where that has happened to people. I think actually it's even happened to me in the past where years ago I was doing something residential and like that stuff just all got all over in the wheel, and it affected it enough where it wasn't closing the pressure switch anymore. So that was pretty early on in my career, so that was just a pain in the butt for me to figure that out way back when. But I would say always try to get a gasket. If you have like your office ordering the parts, just always make sure they're getting the gasket before you go out there. Another solution, if it's like kind of last minute or you have to make it work, like the gasket's not available, any of that kind of stuff, I have used and seen high temp caulk used. Another thing with that is you really got to watch. Something very similar is that if you don't get the seal good around on the inducer motor housing, sometimes that stuff will get in and also get on the wheel. I've also seen that happen where the wheel just gets plugged up solid with a bunch of high temp caulking, which at that point you're basically putting in another inducer motor assembly. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Another thing I'm going to do as I pull this inducer motor off, I'll just kind of visually inspect heat exchangers from that kind of point. I mean, you don't have a lot of visibility, but whatever I can see, sometimes you can see something obvious. I think in the last video I kind of stated sometimes you can see like bees, beehive, birds, all sorts of weird stuff like that getting in there. So I'll just keep an eye out for any of that as well, just to make sure nothing got in there. And if I do have any rust or any of that kind of buildup, I'll usually try to hit it with a wire brush just to have a better seal on everything. And then as far as the pressure switch goes, it's gonna be pretty straightforward. I can see right at the get-go though, this is the one that's in there is an older style, and they have modified it. It looks like it's this style now. One thing I just always recommend is making sure you check in your inch water column is the same when you pull it off. This one's saying negative 0.33. You definitely want to make sure you put in the same one. I mean, even when they look different, like this one physically like looks different, it should be the same parameters on the actual pressure switch, because clearly if you're putting in the wrong one on that, you're gonna create a lot of issues or the system's not gonna be working. So that's kind of everything. Like I said, I'm gonna get started with some screws here. I'll do a little video, kind of just a shot once I get that off so you can kind of see it. Another thing to always check is this tubing, and actually I can see right here that this is really dried and corroded, so I have enough slack. I'm going to cut off just this end and push that back on. This smaller little orifice style here I have seen, I'm sure other people have too, when you start getting some of this kind of corrosion and rust, I have seen it plug up, so I'll usually blow through it, or if I have a paper clip on me or something like that, I'll kind of ream it out just to make sure nothing's plugged up or dirty. But yeah, this is something to always keep an eye to. If you don't have enough, like it's already really tight and you're using everything you got, make sure that you aren't going to run into issues with that, because then you have to bring out more hosing. And actually, when I just bent that like that, I could see that this was resting right here on this hot surface, and it's actually cracked here too, and you can see it just from getting hot all the time kind of messed it up. So even for me now, it's going to be pretty tight, making sure that's good. But that's just a good observation to make when you're out there. Obviously, it would have been nice to catch that before I came out, but I always try to keep a little bit of this extra tubing on my truck, just so if I run into that, I don't get screwed when I'm out in the moment or at a call or doing a maintenance or any of those kinds of things. So yeah, I'll go ahead and show you guys behind this inducer motor assembly next. So now I have that inducer motor assembly off, and kind of some of that flakiness I was talking about that can get caught on the wheel is like this kind of stuff when you're reusing them. Like I said, I just always recommend replacing. Also, like right here, you can see this kind of corrosion. So this gasket's basically like bare metal right here. So I'll go ahead and peel that off. Looks like this new gasket has a couple holes to line up, so it'll be easy and it's gonna hold it in place. So I'll go ahead and get that off. Another little tip that I recommend when you're anything with wiring, meaning whether it's a board or whatever the heck you're doing, just take a picture before you kind of get started. Just, I mean, you might get preoccupied or realize the motor's wrong or board's wrong or get called off a call or anything like that. Just having that picture can save your butt, especially, you know, I'm sure all of us have bumped a wire off that you don't know where it went, and just saves you time having to look at the schematic and figuring out where it was. Another thing I usually do is I'll just, as I'm in the moment, I'll usually just cut them after I verify there's no power, and then I'll just leave them there until I get the new one on. I can just rematch right back up where I was. So yeah, I'm basically gonna peel off the rest of this gasket, kind of inspect it. As you can see, you can't see much, but sometimes you can catch something really obvious. But yeah, everything there looked good. Inspected through the tube, everything there looks good as well. So yeah, I'm gonna get this new inducer motor back on, and then do the pressure switch and the tubing and test everything. So yep. So now I got all the parts in here, got the new inducer motor in here. I always try to zip tie everything up just so it's nice and tight and secure in here. Got the new gasket, as you can see back there. The new pressure switch is right here. It's a little bit different style. I had to kind of modify how to screw it in a little bit. Speaking of that, that's kind of another tip. If, say, your tube is a little shorter and you have the ability to, you could always lower this just a little bit, just so you can get more slack in the line. So I shortened this one up also to so that it could actually not be touching. You can see now there's a gap in between here and the tubing, just so it's not touching anymore, and hopefully it doesn't get all brittle and break like it did last time. Yeah, that's pretty much everything on this. Is pretty straightforward and easy. I will now probably just grab a vacuum and kind of vacuum up inside this burner compartment. It is pretty dirty in here, and a lot of little like dust and debris and particles. But yeah, everything here is looking pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and fire it off now, just to make sure that that is working, and then after that I'll kind of do my final cleanup here. But definitely just want to make sure everything is working good. So that was everything on this inducer motor assembly and pressure switch. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy. Another thing too, on this old one, I think I kind of pointed it out when I was doing the diagnostic originally, but I think what basically took this motor out is, as you can see, I lost a nut right here that was holding this motor to the housing. So I think that it just kind of wiggled and got loose, and then the motor kept trying to start with the wheel probably touching or something like that, with it being all in there at the wrong angle, and just fried it. Another thing I try to do is I'll take like a little screwdriver or pin, I'll just kind of flick the wheel once it's all installed, just making sure. Sometimes when you tighten stuff down, it kind of can bend or contort something. I just like to make sure it's spinning freely before I actually give it power. I'd rather find out off just a quick little test like that than with it actually trying to start up. So I'll go ahead and fire it off here now and we'll go from there. So a couple more things to add. I ended up doing the filters because it was due to be changed. So I pulled out the filters behind this door. I mean, the filters are just right in there. You can slide them out. Got the old ones down here. Another thing I had written up was to do the belt. For those of you who haven't done it on these ones, you can basically remove a couple screws down here on the sides, and this whole compartment will actually slide out, and then you can slide everything to kind of work on it a little bit easier. They make a lot longer leads on some of these motors, so you can actually have a little bit of that wiggle room. Another thing too, if you don't feel like sliding out, you feel like kind of reaching in there and getting to it, which isn't too bad, you can loosen some bolts on the sides and then adjust this so it can give you enough slack to get the new belt on. So yeah, I ended up getting a new belt on here. I ended up going to a AX instead of just an A belt, just to get a little bit, I just feel like they're a little bit stronger and last a little bit longer. So I ended up getting the new belt on here with good tension and everything like that, as you can see there. And then, so yeah, now I'm just gonna basically be jumpering on the heat and making sure everything is working good there, so I can reapply power now. And it actually might be in a call still. If not, I'm gonna just go ahead and jumper it up and go from there. So I didn't have a call from the thermostats down below, so I just jumpered out my heat down here, or out here between the R and the W. Everything fired off great. You hear the burners going down there, but yeah, everything's going good there. Basically all I have left now is just kind of do some cleanup in the burner compartment and call it good. Yeah, that was pretty much everything on this video I wanted to cover. I mean, this one needed a lot of just kind of like easy, well, a couple of easier repairs, and then kind of just miscellaneous maintenance stuff like the belt and the filters and stuff like that. So hopefully they get a little bit more life out of this guy, and we'll kind of go from there. So if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe, and thank you guys for watching.